Why is it that a beloved race like the Chaos Dwarves being released was not met with the universal hype that we all expected? When Creative Assembly finally revealed the Chaos Dwarves in March, I truly expected the fanbase to go wild with joy, finally seeing our Babylonian big-hatted friends enter the Warhammer scene as more than just an entourage to a hell cannon. Instead, they kind of went wild in a different way entirely, which begs the question, why? What's the problem with the Chaos Dwarves? My name is Blake, and I bid you my fondest welcome to Blake's Takes, where we'll be discussing my take on the upcoming DLC for Warhammer 3, The Forge of the Chaos Dwarves. Are my takes hot or not? Let me know in the comments below. In order to get to the root of this issue, we need to go back in time a bit. When Total War Warhammer, the first in the series, was first released back in 2016, I was cautious at picking it up on release. The scars were still fresh from the disastrous launch of Rome 2, and it was fair to say, once bitten, twice shy with regards to Creative Assembly's products. Warhammer 1 went on to receive high reviews for what was an interesting showcase and a big mix-up to the traditional Total War formula. After a fair period of watching from the rafters, my curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up and had a brief romp with the orcs, and then I set it back down again. It's not until Warhammer 2 hit the shelves in 2017 did I really start to take notice of the franchise and its potential. Apart from bugs here and there, the game was good, and the DLCs that they began producing were simply head and shoulders above what we had previously come to expect from Creative Assembly. We were in awe of Claw's nuclear arsenal and the thoroughness of the Tomb King's roster, as well as their well-thought-out faction mechanics, drove wide acclaim from the community. Hell, there was even a totally new entry to the Warhammer Fantasy Battles universe with the introduction of the Vampire Coast. The community was stunned. Did it mean we could be seeing even more forgotten races of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles brought into the fray? Maybe the kingdoms of Ind would join us, the hinterlands of Kuresh, maybe even the Fishmen. Steam records that I myself have put in over 1,300 hours into this game. That's enough time to get a bachelor's degree. So when Warhammer 3 was finally announced, fans, including myself, went positively bonkers. Forums were rife with wild speculation, and the announcement cinematic trailer was truly to die for. I even went ahead and bought shares in Games Workshop, thinking that Warhammer 3 would be something of a home run. We simply couldn't get enough. It was a hedonistic feeding frenzy. Whenever content was drip-fed to us, we gorged like the heathen kings of old. Warhammer 3's release was mixed, to say the least. There was a delay in release from December 2021 to February 2022, which was probably the best indicator of the state of the product we were to receive. When the game did release, it simply felt unfinished. The Realm of Chaos campaign was met with mostly negative reactions. The gameplay was janky, the issues numerous. There was a glaring lack of blood. The AI player bias, making AI factions travel absurd lengths to fight the player, even if it meant abandoning their own capital, left many players incensed. The unfun mechanics, such as rifts spawning full stacks deep in your territory, with no way to defend against them, as well as the new siege layouts, which were very poorly implemented. All of these, along with a multitude of bugs and graphical errors, led to mostly negative and mixed reviews on launch. The release of Immortal Empires was very far away, and the player count dwindled. By the end of March 2022, more people were playing Warhammer 2 than Warhammer 3, which after just 1 month of release is pretty damning. So what has this got to do with the Chaos Dwarves? I hear you cry. Well, very little, but you need this context to understand the fan base's ire. Patches to fix reported issues have been glacially slow, and a lot of bugs and issues which were there on launch in February, and also in older Warhammer games, are still present to this day. Things like the infamous gate bug, as well as new bugs like ranged units not being able to find their targets and standing around scratching themselves when they have line of sight, are still very much present in the game. Flying units with more than one entity, like Doom Knights and Rotflies, often find one of their entities stuck in combat, leading to the entire squad suicide charging back in, having already disengaged. And then we get onto sieges. The towers in sieges are horrible. They are my personal bugbear. Each faction seems to erect the same ramshackle-looking wooden tower, which fires everything from arrows to cannonballs to arcane blobs of eldritch energy. It's immersion breaking to the extreme, coupled with the terrible pathfinding, which leaves units unable to move, or all blobbed up in narrow streets. There's simply no strategy in it. Jam your soldiers into the breach and grind down the enemy. The pathfinding breaks so often in settlement battles that to try and use things like cavalry to flank around is so futile, as they end up often disobeying your orders and finding some spearmen to plough themselves into. It really surprises me at this past quality assurance, because I don't know who in their right mind would call these sieges fun. Instead of a fix, CA simply removed siege maps for anything that isn't a major settlement or does not have tier 3 walls for a minor settlement. I really do hope, that this was simply a stopgap measure whilst they overhaul sieges in their entirety, because unfortunately I really do feel that they need to go back to the drawing board with it. Currently, at the time of posting, there is no timeline as to whether these bugs are going to be fixed or if they're going to be fixed at all. CA recently had an Ask Me Anything in their Discord channel, and unfortunately it did not go well. Many questions regarding bugs on this AMA were answered stating that they will not be addressed in patch 3 when the Chaos Dwarves release, and herein lies the problem. Without addressing these core issues, plenty of the Total War fanbase feel less than enthused to part with their money for more content, especially when CA has decided to price the new DLC at €25, around 40% of the cost of the base game, making the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves their most expensive DLC to date. Now, I do not have the patch notes, so this is somewhat speculative. The Chaos Dwarfs had not released yet, so I can't say anything for certain about the quality of the race being added, but I can see already numerous graphical clipping issues on a lot of the Chaos Dwarf roster. The Kadai Destroyer, for example, the centerpiece unit for the Chaos Dwarf arsenal, has a glaring clipping issue on the back of the model. Units' pauldrons merrily clip through their faces as they shout and cheer. Now, these may be minor graphical complaints. Hell, they could even be fixed by the release of the Chaos Dwarf roster in April, but it's not the best indicator of quality. I'm not trying to dunk on Warhammer 3. I love the franchise. I effectively have a degree in Warhammer 2, but there are certain elements of Warhammer 3 that need addressing. Sieges, crippling bugs, and graphical issues. CA really needs to get a handle on these so we can all enjoy their flagship game for many years to come. If the game had launched in this state, it would have been acceptable, but we're now over a year into the product's life cycle. I own every single DLC available for all of the Warhammer games, and this is the first one which I'm pausing for. I only say these things because I care so deeply about the franchise, and I really want to see the game reach its full potential. In conclusion, it's not the content which people are angry about, it's the long list of irritating bugs, graphical glitches, and questionable design choices which are so immersion destroying, and they're being left unaddressed. This, coupled with being asked to fork out for the most expensive DLC yet, it's not going to be a good time for the fans. Please don't get me wrong, I will almost certainly purchase this accompaniment to Warhammer 3, At this point, I don't feel I have the willpower to resist the call of Hashut, but I do beseech Creative Assembly to take heed of the growing discontent so readily and easily accessible on the forums. These are legitimate concerns for the future, and with Total War Three Kingdoms seared into our minds, we best hope the DLC sells well. Well, that's all for today's episode of Blake's Takes. Do you agree with my take on the Chaos Dwarves in Warhammer 3? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Blake, delivering my take. Thanks for watching.